Well, hello. I want to welcome you to the show. And instead of starting with my coffee or water cup, I am going to start with a glass of wine. And you'll see why in just a moment, because we're going to be talking to a man who is an ex-Los Angeles SWAT officer who also is into beautiful wines and events and teaches you how to shoot. Stay tuned.
Welcome to our podcast, Doing It Right. This podcast reveals authentic stories from successful leaders doing it right. It's about their journey to become a leader, their choices, motivations, and lessons. In essence, how they built successful personal brands. Your host is Valerie Sokolosky, author of 8 leadership books and nationally known as an authority on executive presence and personal branding. Let's get started. Here's Valerie.
I always want to thank my sponsors of the show. First of all, Betty Ryder, who allows me to wear her beautiful couture clothing, and this is an example. So thank you, Betty Ryder, located in Dallas, Texas at Preston Center. Just look for the boutique that has a red door in that center. You can't miss it. And also, I forget to mention my own books. I wrote 8 of them, just so you know. It was like giving birth to 8 children, only more painful. But 2 of them that are still available on Amazon, Monday Morning Leadership for Women, and the show's named Doing It Right off of this book called Do It Right. So if you're interested, go to Amazon and take a peek. Well, today I want to have you stay tuned for a moment because my guest, Doug Gould, I messed it up already.
All of the above.
And we
it's
always
good.
have bloopers. No one ever shows my bloopers, so keep that one in, would you, producer? Doug is an ex-LA SWAT officer. As I said, he has over 4 decades of experience in teaching firearms skills and more than 25 years expertise in conducting wine classes and tastings. Doug has also seen the underbelly of life. We've seen it on television. He has lived it and seen it. Okay, so Doug, first of all, how often have I been able to do this? Let us cheers to you, sir.
To us.
Well, to us, but to you, a wonderful guest who has lived such an incredible life. I'll just say to the audience, both those watching and listening, Doug, that it's really a multi-dimensional life, and that's the kind of guy you are. And I love what you say on your LinkedIn page. It says pulling triggers and pulling corks. So tell us first about that, and then I'll go into the story about the life you've led as an LA officer.
So just starting really early, at age 6, I got my first gun and started shooting.
Wait a minute.
Age 6.
So how does a mother give a son or a father?
I don't know if they were trying to just remove me out of the gene pool, said, here, son, go shoot all day long. So
Seriously.
I would go shoot all day long with a single shot 22 long rifle. I still have it. September will be my 50th year of having that firearm. So I've been shooting since then. Started off from there, continued up and was in the LA County Sheriff's Academy at age 20. So that's the pulling trigger side. Been doing that ever since then. And then got into pulling corks in my 20s, living in California. We were surrounded by some amazing wine areas up north.
Sure.
And got into that, and then came to Texas and started it with whiskey. So, pulling some corks out of whiskey and pulling some corks out of barrels and wine bottles. So it's definitely a fun, but we always pull the triggers first. Then we pull the corks.
Okay, audience, just stay tuned. This is pretty interesting. So, first of all, the name of your organization is Bullets, Beasts, and Bourbon. Tell us a little bit about what you do now.
So Bullets, Beasts, and Bourbon is an amalgamation of the things we just talked about. So Bullets is the shooting world. Anything that has to do with shooting falls within the Bullets. Beast is anything of the barbecue. Of course, here in Texas, we love our barbecue. But it could be any type of food, French, Italian, anything that has this wonderful food beast component to it. And, of course, the bourbon is anything with alcohol. It's whiskey the vast majority of time, and it's a lot of bourbon, but it's also wine. So anything that we decide that we want to pair up. So we should start with shooting. We lock up all the guns. Then we head into the club, and then we end up pairing up some wonderful foods with some wonderful either wine, whiskey, or other libation. And just have a really good time.
Okay, I'm trying to picture this because I have not been there yet. I'm going to. You know what? I told Doug this, that I have been told by my husband for many years, Valerie, we have some guns under the bed, oops, in case, and I've never held one. And so, yes, I need to learn. So, first of all, why should I learn, or anyone learn to shoot a gun today? Let's be real.
When I'm training my students, I always ask, who should have won, David or Goliath in the battle? And a lot of times people, oh my gosh, Goliath. God, nah, Goliath was a walking dead man. He didn't know it. And because David was so good with the tool that he had, his sling, and he practiced and he trained. And it gave him the ability to take on something that was so much bigger, a person that was so much bigger, that was a threat, that had nefarious intent, was coming to do him harm. Well, in today's world, we don't use a sling anymore, but a firearm will do as a sling. If we learn to use our tool very well, someone such as yourself, if someone that's 6'7" or 8 foot like Goliath shows up, and you have that ability to protect yourself, there's a saying, God made some men big and some small, and Colonel Colt made them all equal. Well, this is an equalizer. It gives you the ability to protect yourself, protect your family, and protect other ones that you love.
So, Doug, I live in a condominium. Our audience lives multiple different places. Where would I keep something like this that I can easily get to?
So the great news is, nowadays there's so many wonderful contemporary safes that you could just put a finger on and it'll unlock. You can put a code into it right next to your bed, so you don't have to worry about somebody getting your firearm that you didn't want to. But it's right there, instant access for you. And whether it's biometric or a combination or a key or anything else, you can do that. And especially with one gun, you don't need to buy a big, huge safe, a little small one that you can end up bolting down to whatever you want to. It's going to be perfect for you.
Well, I asked that question because, as I told you over lunch, living in a condominium, believe it or not, I had a possible bad experience when a young man was allowed to get into the condominium and knocked on my door, and that's all you really need to hear. Everything turned out all right. Of course, I'm right here. But it scared me to death, and that's one of the reasons, having heard about you, I wanted you on the show to say we, me included, need to be able, right, to keep ourselves safe. So I'm curious about the safety part of it, but also your experience in, as I said, the underbelly of life. Talk a little bit about what you learned that has stuck with you the most about your experience. For how long in Los Angeles?
So I started in late 80s in a city called Baldwin Park out of East Los Angeles. It's its own municipality. It's its own department. It was a very, very active area throughout the 90s. A lot of crime, a whole lot of drive-by shootings, and a whole lot of victims that were there. One of the biggest takeaways was a lot of those victims didn't have a fighting chance. They were completely unarmed, and they were either taken over by numbers, people that were a lot stronger, or that were armed. And in California, they make it pretty much impossible for the civilian to get a carry permit. Luckily here in Texas, it's very easy for our citizenry to arm themselves. We have constitutional carry by the Second Amendment that we're allowed to carry. I highly recommend everybody get their LTC, license to carry anyways, and then train. David wasn't good with a sling just because he had a sling. David was good with the sling because from the time he was a child, he protected the flock against lions and bears. And by doing that, he practiced all the time and got better and better. So it's not that we go and buy a firearm or buy a tool and then something magic happens. We have to get the tool, and we have to practice, and we have to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And that would be my suggestion and advice to you, is that it's a journey of 1,000 miles. Buying it is the first step. Training, understanding, and then working through scenarios that you get very, very familiar. And it's akin to me say, hey, let's go drive. On day one, if I said, you're going to jump on the freeway, it's going to be 80, 90 miles an hour, and cars are going to be honking on you, it's going to end poorly. Right. Same thing with just saying, hey, I'm going to go buy a gun and never train, never learn what to do, but one day I'm going to go 80 miles an hour with it and expect to know what to do. It's not going to happen. We need to get you going 5 miles per hour in a parking lot and doing this, and get you going a little bit quicker and a little bit quicker. And you're saying, hey, I'm ready for the freeway.
I had just never even thought about all this until the exit situation happened with me, and then I was introduced to you, and I'm so glad. I want to go back to you as a kid, growing up in Los Angeles, was it?
Yeah, northern LA County.
Okay. So you shared with me some pretty tough things about your childhood, and one of the takeaways that I wrote down, I think is really important, is that you said strength comes from embracing the hard times, and Doug, you had them. Will you share what you're willing to?
Sure. During that same conversation I had shared with you, it's not what happens to us, it's how we frame it. Mm-hmm. How do we react to it? So we have one of two choices. We can either say, woe is me, it was this, or we can say, this happened. What are the positive takeaways I can do to build upon it? And I'd shared with you, my mom had me early, 15 years old, just a month before 16. Dad bailed right after that. Mom, good heart, bad decision making. If there was 1,000 decisions on this table, 999 were good. One bad one, she could find that bad one, every single time. So she went from that individual over to bikers. So I grew up with a motorcycle group called Hessians, who was often with Hells Angels, and so I was at biker parties. And then my mom wouldn't be around a lot, so they would hand me off to my aunt. So I'd be at the rodeo with bronc riders and bull riders and the stuff like that. Then I'd be back with my grandparents, who were pharmacists and occupational therapists, SC grads. Then I'd be handed off to my great-grandmother, who was born in 1902 here in Texas, that had lived through World War I, Spanish flu, Great Depression, World War II, and just was a wealth of knowledge, but was, had tremendous grit. And each one of those gave me a different element of growing up.
Wow.
So it's very interesting times.
And thus, you're a pretty flexible kind of person.
Sometimes when we self-reflect, we go, what am I good at, or who am I? And I have a genuine love of people. I enjoy people. And every one of us has a story. Everybody that, we met, well, we were pouring wine today, has a story and this such. And I'm generally interested in what's the story. What is it that makes you, or me? And I look back at all those experiences I had, and it was being around all those people that all had so many different various stories and so much of a divergence of interest in their lives. And I said, wow, what a gift. If I'd been at the same house every single day with the same parents and maybe the same sibling, I would have never been exposed to that. But I was, and that's made me who I am, of somebody that loves being around people. So as I said, on this hand you can go, I wish it had been this way. On this hand, it was this way, and this was my takeoff. And I embraced this one.
My goodness. Because you're right. It could have gone either way. And there certainly are stories out there that it goes the other way, and we've all heard some of those. So that is amazing. And Doug, where does your strength, when did you start having the strength to get through this?
I think a lot of it is innate. Certainly God still has a mission for me, still has purpose for me. I trained over 600 and something people last year to get their LTC license. And I was able to help good people, perhaps at some point in time, defend against evil. I have a joie de vivre. I just love life. Every day's a gift. If you look at the great lunch we had and the people we ran into, right. And then there are no strangers. There's just friends I haven't met yet. And I enjoy the heck out of that, and the fun of trying a new wine with somebody and introducing them to something new. And myself learning something new. So I think a lot of it was innate. And then read a whole lot of books.
Did you?
Yeah. And of course, Tony Robbins is there, but Shimon Perdon, and a lot of other books that it was on the shoulders of giants. They had shared. Every author is sharing their story. So you get to take this nugget and this piece, and you get to amalgamate, here's my story. I think I'd shared with you Musashi, the Book of Five Rings, the greatest samurai. And I'd ask him, how do you kill 10 people? He goes, the one in front of you first. Well,
good.
Today we look at that and we go, oh, well, that's kind of violent. But in his time as a samurai, that was important. But what does it mean to us? We have 10 things we have to get done today. We have 10 pressing things. What do? The one that has to get taken care of first. The one that will get the bills, turned, or the lights turned off, the bills due. Okay, that's first. So if we pay attention to something way over here that doesn't mean much, or the last person in the line that was coming to kill Musashi, then all of a sudden the ones up front would wipe him out. So it was focus on what matters, take care of that, and the other ones take as they become more important. If they never get to the front of the line, don't worry about it. It's all going to be okay.
That is such a good aspect of leadership too, Doug, in that it's so easy to get distracted and defocused with so much in our business day and how fast things can change. So in my executive coaching, the men and women that I talk to very, very often are really wanting to talk about just that, how to handle the changes in life, which you went through so many, including, on a interesting and good note, becoming a restaurateur in Costa Rica. What about that?
Yeah, so again, one door closes. I got injured, retired out of law enforcement, got into real estate, and that led to international real estate to Costa Rica, and ended up with a boutique resort in Costa Rica, right on the ocean, and absolutely amazing adventure and time. And I used to do week-long wine tastings down there.
That's where you learned about the wine and the
I'd learned
food
about
and
wine
all
a
that?
little bit before, even when I was in law enforcement, because California is very wine central. But it's really where I learned about doing wine events and hosting things like that. It really took it to the next level. That was there. And all was really good till that little thing called 2008.
Oh, we all remember that.
Ran over me, backed up, ran
Yeah.
over and backed up, and the such. But again, you look at it, say, did I have any control over it? Just like getting injured on the job. I had no control over what happened to me and got injured. I had no control over 2008. And I always say, it's the mirror and the pillow.
The mirror and the pillow.
If you look in the mirror and you like what you see, and I'm not saying physically, it's like, oh, so I need to work out and not have this much wine and maybe one less meal. And those are all true, but would you hang out with you? Would you say, hey, if you were going down a dark alley, was that the person you'd like to be with? And if all those answers are, yeah, I like that person, that's a good thing. If it's not, you don't beat yourself up. You just say, let's work on it. Let's get a little bit better. So when you look in the mirror, ask those questions. And the pillow is, when you put your head down at night, if it's your last night, that night you go to God. And you say, have I lived the fullest life I could with the resources I had? Yes, if we were all billionaires, we'd have 200-foot yachts or whatever else. But with the resources I had, have I lived the best life? Again, if the answer is yes, close your eyes and enjoy your night's sleep. If it's no, don't beat yourself up. Say, how can I lead a little bit better life? What can I do to enjoy with the resources I have? If I need more resources, I need a few more dollars. Maybe I need to work a little harder. If I need some more people in my circle, maybe I need to go out and actually talk to people. Whatever it is, then go and work on those. And but if you get 2 yeses and you have that consistently, you're on the right path. That's a good life right there. And it's pretty simple, but sometimes the simplest things are the best things.
Sounds simple, right? It does sound simple. So another takeaway that you shared with me is that we can break the chains. So we started talking about your mom and the life as a child. Talk to us about that. I think many of us have chains that need to be broken.
So
what do you mean by that?
Well, one, my mom having me very early. So she ended up, and talking to my grandmother and other folks, they just talked about her intelligence level, very, very intelligent lady. And she has a sister, and her sister is a retired pharmacist now, travels throughout the United States in her motorhome, she's retired out, and just has a really, really wonderful life in later years. My mom, on the other hand, has had nothing but very hard times. And it was because of those bad decisions. And it was using hard drugs, methamphetamine, cocaine, amphetamines, all sorts of other stuff like that, being around people that were doing that. And then picking people that weren't the best to be in her life, being surrounded by people that weren't of best character. So when my dad ended up leaving, I don't know, I think I was 18 months or something, and he was never in my life. And people, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Well, maybe yes, maybe no, don't really know, because he wasn't. But what I did was I made certain that when I have my three children, my three daughters, that I was. So, pick them up or take them to school, pick them up from school, be at the tennis games, be at their cheerleading practice, and all the way through. And the chain was broke. One, yes, I enjoyed the wine, but all of the other things was very adamant never to touch, because I saw how it destroys. I would point to my daughters as they were growing up, if you want to see what doing drugs and bad decisions looks like, look at your grandmother. If you want to see what not doing drugs and doing good decisions looks like, look at your aunt. Here's two sisters, here's two examples. And I'm happy to say that all my kids are in their mid-20s now. And
Beautiful girls,
yes,
women.
Yeah, beautiful young ladies, no doubt. And they have seen what having a father in their life, having somebody that is there constantly and building them up and letting them know what their worth is, and how powerful and how independent they are because of having both a mother and father in their life. So
That's a blessing for them. Doug, when you look back at the experiences that you had in Los Angeles when you were in law enforcement, I've always wanted to ask someone this, so I will ask you. How do you put those aspects of your life, those experiences that are not great, how do you put those aside?
I think we're all hardwired a little bit different. And I think that some of us that worked there were able to compartmentalize and put things into our locker when we left. And you never leave it 100%, but you could leave the vast majority there. And the haunts, most of them would stay there. They didn't follow you home. There's other guys that I worked with that when they left, the haunts went with them, and they haunted them, consciously and in their dreams and the visions of what you saw. The other one, and I shared with you, I just think that my sense of humor leads to it. And a lot of the guys that I've known, whether it was working out of ghettos or hard places in law enforcement, or in the military, ones that seem to have a sense of humor, and we might even say a twisted sense of humor, we're able to compartmentalize a little bit better and say, okay, yes, here's where it is. And it wasn't laughing at the tragedy of somebody, but just being able to make light of life itself, that we all realize we're here, but we all have a number, and our number, when it comes, and I truly believe that to my core, I have a number, and on that day, I will leave here and go to be with God. That's there. So, and I can't control that number. That it's designed out for me.
So what do you think about this defund the police?
Well, I think it's working really well in San Francisco, Chicago,
Jeez.
Detroit, Philadelphia. It's an absolute nightmare. And it's one of the problems when people get voted in that have no idea what they're doing. And rather than using logic, common sense, and intelligence, they use emotion. And they're like, we are going to do this because it emotionally feels good. Unfortunately, all the people in those communities pay a tremendous price. But it's not just the defund the police financially. They've defunded the police spiritually and emotionally. When you are out there and you know that the city council has no backing for you, that you are nothing more than a number. As a matter of fact, they tremendously dislike you. And it's proven by the rhetoric and a lot. So when you go out to do your job, how are you motivated? And a lot of the folks, unfortunately, say, if I do nothing, I do nothing wrong. So I must do nothing. So that way I do nothing wrong. Who pays the price? All the citizens of that community. And I'm not saying that this happens with every single officer, of course not. A lot of them are still out and doing, great, amazing things. But when you constantly are told, we're going to take the money from you, we're going to not support you, and we're going to prosecute you at any point that we possibly can for anything, how do you have motivated employees, motivated people to step and be that thin blue line between good and evil? And then unfortunately, when that happens, you have a lot of people that used to want to become police officers that are no longer. So the pool of people becomes tremendously smaller. And sometimes you end up with people that shouldn't have been there. And they do something stupid, and people go, look, it's happened all over again. When you drain that pool down of participants, and if you look across the vast majority of large cities, they're down hundreds or thousands of officers. And the guys that are there, the officers, both men and ladies, they're absolutely at breaking points. They're working overtime shifts, mandatory overtime shifts. You can't take days off. And yeah, at some time, it just is going out. I don't know what the statistics are now, but I know that it's very high of people going out on psychological medicals. So,
and that's happening in just companies, organizations, taking PTO time, burnout.
Yeah, a whole lot, and across the board, almost all the first responders. COVID did quite a number on that.
They did. Well, here's to you. Take a quick sip.
Here.
Took it first. So let me get to your experience in now enjoying pairing food and wine and barbecue. What's so fun about that for you?
It's three things I love. I love shooting. I love training. I love educating. It's to my core, teaching people about things. So anytime that I can teach, whether I'm on the shooting side, on the food side, and I'm not a tremendous foodie in the preparing. I love eating it, but I don't have the preparing gene. But on the
Can't
education
have it all
side,
day.
yes, I got 2 out of 3 pretty darn good. On the wine side, that. And during COVID, when everything was locked down, the shooting range was still open. So I would invite friends and say, hey, shall we go shoot? And okay. And one of them guys would go, hey, I'll put a brisket on for 18 hours on the green egg.
Oh,
okay.
Fun.
And then another guy would go, I'll bring a couple bottles of this whiskey or that whiskey. And it was really good stuff.
That's how it started.
And that's the genesis of Bullets, Beast, and Bourbon.
Isn't great?
I watched the camaraderie and the community that was built through that. And I thought, hey, you know what? I'll bet you a lot of other people would love this. And sure enough, I did it as a beta for about 2 years. And almost every one of my events is 100% full whenever I run them. And so I started theming them up. The guns of John Wick, or the guns from Call of Duty, or guns from just Texas. And then we would have, after we were done, we would lock all those up. And then we would end up doing whiskeys that were in the movie John Wick. And then we would do things that are paired up with Call of Duty. And then with Texas Born, we would do stuff like Garrison Brothers or Iron Root or other whiskeys made here in Texas. And I found that my events usually are about 4 hours, 2 hours on the shooting range and then 2 hours on the cuisine and libation side. I find that people don't leave for 5 to 6 hours.
I bet that's true.
That afterwards they're like, hey, and it's not one or two hang out. It's a lot of people will hang out and just enjoy the conversation and the camaraderie. And they're like, wow, this is a lot of fun. And I have about an 80% return of people coming back for another event each time.
Goodness.
Yeah. So I'm super happy. I what they say, if you do something you love, you'll never work another day in your life. I am doing something times 3 that I love.
Isn't that wonderful?
So I'm very, very fortunate.
What percentage of men versus women are taking advantage of this
on
opportunity?
the shooting, when we have whiskey, it's probably 80+% men. But when I do wine ones, I just did one, it was all ladies. We did wines, or we did firearms all from Europe. I did guns from Germany and Austria and Italy and the Czech Republic. And then we went into the club, locked up all the guns, went into the club, and then we did wines from Germany, Austria, Italy, France, and the such. And I have another one coming up for it'll be all ladies that will be showing up, and it's the firearms and then the wine side. And then I do a lot of corporate events, and that's just a mix of who's doing that. I did one for the Rough Riders A lot of their staff showed up, and a lot of tech companies, and those are pretty well mixed, of about 50-50.
Really?
So really just kind
Well,
of
it's unique. It's
It
unique.
is, and again, just at the beginning, everyone's kind of quiet, and I'm asking questions
Like,
about
what are we gonna
experience and
do?
stuff, and then I ask, have you ever shot a full automatic weapon? No. I
No.
go, this is like riding a motorcycle at speed. I can't tell you, how it's going to be, but you're going to have a big smile, and sure enough, the smiles are ear to ear, and they're like, oh. And then afterwards, they come into the club, we're trying this and pairing it with that, and next thing you know, they're talking to the person next to them, and what do you do? Oh my gosh, and
Camaraderie.
exchanging phone
Right.
numbers and stuff like that. It's just truly some magical moments.
Well, and the thing that I think is interesting too, because my audience knows we enjoy nice wines, and my husband has, yes, gotten involved in appreciating some different bourbons, and it doesn't mean that you're an alcoholic or that you'll become an alcoholic. It's a camaraderie, and it isn't every day.
Right.
So talk a little bit about that, because you saw a lot of, again, the underbelly of drugs and alcohol and abuse and,
Yeah, one thing when we're doing our events, we're doing small pours. So we're not
There you
doing,
go.
hey, we're going to have a full glass times 5. We're going to end up doing, on whiskey, we generally will do 3/4 to an ounce. And then and
Taste.
we spread that over 2 hours, and we're eating food the
you
entire
go.
time. And that way, everybody's got enough that they're able to try, but we're not getting anybody sloshed. We have dump buckets that in case that you did try something and one didn't like it, which don't have very much, or you're like, hey, you know what, I'm there. And number 2, the staff that's serving are all wait staff, i.e. that they have the licenses from the
Professionals.
state to make sure that they're not over serving anybody. So it's not one of the things where, the Wild Wild West, we're shooting and then drinking a bottle of whiskey and shooting. Having owned a wine bar out here and having done other events, understanding, we're not going to get anybody overserved, but that fine line between making sure everything's perfect on the shooting and then lined up on the tasting side too.
Wow. So I haven't experienced it yet, but I'm going to come out, and you were kind enough to say that you're going to let me shoot. I've never held a gun, as I said, in my hand, so this will be interesting. This has been such an interesting amount of information from, again, someone who's lived with the kind of dregs of life, and now with this great big smile on your face, you've got 3 beautiful daughters who know how to shoot, and you're teaching others how to take care, that's the point I want to make, how to take care of ourselves, which unfortunately, and we talked about this a lot, unfortunately, we're in a world where we probably should be able to take care of ourselves, and I, for one, am not trained in how to beat somebody up, so I guess I'll get a gun and come and let you teach me how to shoot.
You know what? We're going to show your audience a few months from now you shooting.
I'll take pictures of that and post it.
Yeah, right. We'll have this one. This happened on this day. This was this side, and then here's the shooting side.
Well, so you're going to stay tuned for that. This has been amazing, Doug. Very interesting guest like I've not had before, and what a blessing that you have chosen to take the gifts that you've been given that helped people in their lives when you were in law enforcement, and then your love for food and wine and now bourbon and teaching other people to enjoy life. And that big smile says it all, Doug.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation, and I look forward to our paths crossing in a crisscross multiple times and all these other things as we go forward.
And they will. Is there one piece, this is just coming to me to ask, was there one piece of advice you would say to the audience, whatever age or economic situation they're in, just in life from what you've lived?
Enjoy life. It's short, even if it's 100 years, it's short. There's so many things that we stress out over that looking back a month or a year, it's like, why did I worry about that?
Oh, yeah.
See if you can learn not to do that in the moment. And tell the people that you love them. And give hugs a little bit more and often. and then just go out and do stuff that puts a smile on your face, because it's really, really short. And as I said, we all have a number. When that number comes up, we're not going to be able to go back and do all those things that we wish we had.
We can't put the toothpaste, I heard someone say recently, back in the tube. We can't put it back in, so we gotta do it now.
I fully agree.
It's been wonderful, and I want you to stay tuned as I always leave with a Valerieism, and see if you like this one, Doug. And it is this: you'll live in what you give out. I had to really think about this. You will live in what you give out. I'm going to ask you, what do you think that says to you?
You've said it a few times here about me smiling, and you smiling. And you noticed when we smiled at people today at lunch, and when we were warm and open to them, they were warm and open to us. And so what we gave out was, we gave out warmth. We gave out friendship and our friendliness that could lead to friendship, and we embraced. We won't always be embraced back, but that's okay. The next person and the next one, and so many people react to that. Just a nice warm smile and a "how are you?" Yeah, and with sincerity, and perhaps a little bit of twinkle in your eye because you mean it. And that is what you throw out will come back. It certainly will. And on the flip side, if you're a very, very negative person and scowl, that's going to come back too. So put that smile on and send it out there. Yes.
And Doug, what someone said is that it takes more wrinkles to frown than it does to smile. I will never forget that.
Throw a good smile on. Realize how blessed we are.
Yes.
Embrace it, and go forward.
Absolutely. What a joy to have you. Thank you
so
much. So here's one more.
One more cheers.
One more little cheers. A little sip,
thank you so much.
and audience, just live life and smile a lot, because it draws others to you rather than a frown that makes them not want to even get near you. That's it for now. Until next time, stay authentic, enjoy life. Bye.
Thanks for listening. To receive Valerie's voice, free monthly leadership tips, and to learn more about her leadership programs and coaching, visit her website, valerieandcompany.com. Next week, we'll be here again to inspire, engage, and equip you with teachable points of view from successful leaders who have been doing it right. Until then, lead authentically.